Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to talk about that insane She-Hulk finale. Oh my goodness. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely make sure to watch it first because there are going to be spoilers in this video for it. But assuming you've seen it, let's dive right in and talk about that insane She-Hulk finale. Now, certainly one of my favorite parts were all of the meta elements throughout the episode. I mean, she's broken the fourth wall, throughout the whole series, but nothing like this. I mean, first of all, I thought my streaming service went down when the Disney Plus screen showed up, but nope, it was just the She-Hulk poking out of her box, her She-Hulk box on the Disney Plus screen and heading down to the assembled box, which granted wasn't for her episode, but still, it was a way to get to the writing team so that she could complain about her finale. And you gotta love the fact that Marvel they read the fan comments, they're aware of the fan comments, and now here they are even being willing to poke fun at themselves and say, yeah, we get it. I mean, to have She-Hulk basically show up and argue with the writers that this just doesn't make any sense. And, I get it. A lot of fans complain because the Disney Plus shows are just big setups for the movies, or have a bunch of plot lines that don't get resolved to the final episode, and then it's just a real confusing mess. Or it's some giant CGI battle that is impossible to follow. All of those are valid comments. All of those are valid complaints, and She-Hulk is basically lobbying on behalf of the fans, saying, stop it. Don't do that in my finale. Make it better. And then when they're not willing to do it, she says, I'm going to go talk to Kevin then. And you're like, oh my, we're going to see Kevin. This is insane. I love the fact that before she can even get a chance to go see Kevin, she has to sign a giant NDA. And then they still call the security on her. But after beating up security, she heads in to meet Kevin. Not the Kevin we expected, though. Although you got to love the hat, right? It looks like he's wearing Kevin Feige's hat. That's brilliant. But no, it's not Kevin, as in Kevin Feige, but Kevin as in knowledge-enhanced visual interconnectivity nexus. Nexus, right? I love it. That word has been showing up all over the MCU. I mean, we saw it way back in Thor: The Dark World on Dr. Selvig's chalkboard. He had the nexus of all reality. And if you remember from my Werewolf by Night video, I mentioned that Man-Thing in the comics protects the nexus of all reality. It's basically this gate that lets you go to all the different universes. Now, they didn't mention it in Werewolf by Night, but surely they're going to go that direction, right? And then, of course, in WandaVision, we learned about Nexus, the Nexus pills that would let you go to whatever reality you would like. There were Nexus events in Loki, and then in Age of Ultron, the Nexus was where all the information for the internet was stored, which that kind of really makes sense for Kevin, right? That he is basically the algorithm that understands what we all want to see. Or at least he thinks he does. And it takes She-Hulk to convince him, no, this isn't what people want to see. I'm going to rewrite my finale to what they do want. People don't want Todd to turn into the Hulk for no reason whatsoever. They don't want the Incredible Hulk, Smart Hulk, to suddenly show up out of nowhere. For Titania just to come crashing through the wall for no apparent reason. I just love it. How she said, nope. Get rid of all that. I want a simple finale. We are basically, if you think back to episode 8, she thought the show was over with episode 8. If you remember, she was like, aren't we done? Aren't we done? So she's really just trying to say, clean this up and give me a proper ending. And I do like the fact that they really did clean up even some of the minor points. There have been a lot of rumors that dude with the mask, which is the one that tried to get the blood from She-Hulk, that might be Todd himself. I mean, why is he wearing a mask, right? It just looked really sus. There has to be a reason they're hiding his identity. Well, no, they resolved in this episode that dude is just a dude. It's just a dude hanging out with everybody, obviously hired by Todd to go and get the blood. But you notice he's even got the same cheesy W shirt on. I love it that they even took this little itty-bitty, you could argue irrelevant fact, but they wanted to clear it up to say, no, that dude is not Todd. And more importantly, that dude, if you remember, said, oh, the boss is going to be mad when he tried to get that the blood out of her. Well, that made you wonder if that was Todd, then who's the boss? Well, no, it turns out that is not Todd, and probably the boss was Todd. So basically, Todd was in charge of the Intelligentsia website. But I don't think he's really the big bad behind everything ultimately, because somebody has Jen's blood now. Since he didn't turn into the Hulk, and now he's arrested, somebody took that blood from him, and they clearly want more. Because I did wonder, why are they getting this giant needle, presumably from the Wakandan spear, to go after Jen? They've already got her blood. They don't need that thing. I think that needle is to go after the Hulk's blood, since obviously the Hulk is staying in Smart Hulk form. So there is definitely something else going on. But I think, let's say it's the leader, because I do think it's the leader, who's of course going to show up in Captain America New World Order. The leader is smart enough to set up the Intelligentsia website and to get the blood in a way that it makes poor Todd look like the mastermind. It's stretching it a bit, right? But we'll call him the mastermind, so that he takes the fall and then everybody thinks, oh, it's over, it's done. It is far from over. We're going to see that blood show up later, Jen's, and they're going to go after the Hulks, I think. So we'll see. Obviously, they tease some more with the Smart Hulk himself, bringing home his son, Scar. So lots more to learn there. They imply we'll learn in a movie, which is cool, because that means there might finally be an Incredible Hulk movie. Finally. It'll probably be more of a World War Hulk type movie, but with several Hulks, maybe the Red Hulk finally showing up. So that's exciting. Plus, I'm still wondering, is it possible, now that we know Scar exists, is he going to turn out to be Hulkling for the Young Avengers? Now, in the comics, there was no connection whatsoever between Scar and Hulkling. Two completely different people. But honestly, you could argue it's a little confusing, right? In the comics, that there were so many green kids. So maybe to simplify things, as Feige likes to do in general when he adapts the comics into the MCU, this might also end up becoming Hulkling. So we'll see. It's just suspicious how many Young Avengers seem to keep popping up all over the place. They also gave a satisfying conclusion to Blonsky. It turns out he is reformed, mostly. The fact he was turning into Abomination is 100% illegal and ended up getting him obviously thrown back in jail. But the point is, he's not a bad guy, and that's good. I've enjoyed his arc. I have not trusted him, I'll be honest. I've been really suspicious, but turns out that nope, he is no longer a villainous, at least. And then now with Wong taking off with him, you got to wonder, when's he going to show up again? Is it possible Val might recruit him for the Thunderbolts after all? Is it possible Wong is building a new Avengers team? You know, he recruited Shang-Chi, stays in communication with Hulk and Captain Marvel. You know, who knows? But all I know is for certain we're going to see Blonsky again. His story is not done, which is exciting. I really enjoyed having him reintroduced into the MCU. Also, I like the fact that they let us know that at least some people do know who Daredevil actually is. Titania recognized him immediately, which makes sense because she's a big on social media, a big-time influencer. So certainly she would have caught any social media that Daredevil might have been in over time. But I think this is interesting because if you remember in the last episode, Jen had no idea who Daredevil was. So, we continue to see Marvel just straddling the fence on whether or not Daredevil seasons 1 through 3 are still canon. They definitely were canon to begin with, but are they still canon? So, I don't know. They just enjoy teasing us. At first we think, oh, nobody knows who Daredevil is. And then we find out, oh, nope, they do. So I think this is going to continue on for a while. We may not know for a while whether or not they actually consider them to still be canon. And also a real quick follow-up on Melvin Potter, because I know I alluded to him in reference to whether or not Daredevil was still canon. Because, why would Daredevil get somebody else to make his costume? Well, I finally decided that the answer is he's in jail. And if he's not still in jail, he doesn't want to make costumes anymore. But several people said, no, he's not in jail, he's dead. In the final episode of Daredevil Season 3, I'll admit that dude looks a lot like Potter. I don't know that I ever thought it was Melvin, but he is bald and has a mustache. I just don't think the facial features are quite the same. So I guess in my mind, that is not Melvin Potter, but I at least wanted to bring it up because several people replied to my Daredevil videos saying, hey, he's dead. Why are you even talking about him? So I guess we'll never know, right? But definitely Melvin Potter is not a reason for Daredevil Season 1 through 3 for not being canon anymore. And I do want to follow up too, because a lot of people have said, hey, the Netflix shows are canon, period. And they're correct in the regard that when they were first produced and filmed, they were 100% canon. Feige said so himself. I mentioned this in an earlier video, but you can go check out the video, Full Marvel Studios Q&A with President Kevin Feige. It came out in October 29th, 2014. And someone asked him, is there room for the Defenders, and of course, Daredevil was a member of the Defenders, to show up on the big screen in the Infinity War movie? And Feige said there's a lot of people from the movies in Infinity War. And then he said a few more things, but finished by saying all of those things, referring to the Defenders, inhabit, however far on the outskirts, the same continuity, so certainly that opportunity exists. Bottom line, though, is that was Feige confirming that the Defenders are canon. They're part of the MCU. So there's no doubt on whether or not the Netflix shows are canon. The question is, are they still canon? And since Feige hasn't said they are, we have to assume they are. We're just got to wait and see whether Echo and Born Again and anything in the future contradict them. Personally, my opinion is there is a multiverse, there's another universe that has all of the Defenders shows, the Runaways, A Cloak and Dagger, etc., all occurring 100% like they did originally. And then in our universe, 616, there is whatever pieces they want to pull from those shows. So it may only be Daredevil. It may be Daredevil and Punisher. It may be all of it. But the point is, I just think we're going to find that Feige wants a little more freedom to tell his own stories. But we'll have to wait and see. For now, they're canon. That's just the bottom line. They are until they're not, and they've never said they're not. All right, last thing I want to mention, because I think this is really interesting. There was a real quick name drop for Lady Thor, which basically says that She-Hulk must be happening at a point when Lady Thor was around in the MCU. It was just a real quick mention, but very important. So I want to bring up real quickly as we close this video down. I want to bring up the timeline for Phase 4. And again, this is Disney Plus's timeline, using the order they have in their timeline and then inserting in months and years based on logic from the TV shows and the movies. And you can watch my video on Thor's placement in the timeline for a real good description of where these months come from. But here's the real point. I currently have She-Hulk happening in May, but the bottom line is it can be anywhere between April and September. We know Moon Knight takes place in April, and we know that Ms. Marvel takes place in September, beginning of her junior year. We know that Thor takes place in October because it has to be before the Halloween special. And again, this is based on the Disney Plus timeline, I want to keep stressing. But anyway, so an important fact in Thor Love and Thunder is that Jane had a blood test on April 30th. And then she makes a reference to 6 months ago. It's unclear. I've listened to it multiple times, and I can't tell if she's saying she discovered she has cancer 6 months ago or this blood test was 6 months ago. But I can say that based on the Disney Plus timeline, if she got a blood test in April, then it would make sense that 6 months later would be when she showed up in Thor Love and Thunder. Because she immediately left for New Asgard and had been hanging out in New Asgard basically from May time frame all the way to October until, of course, the rest of the movie takes place where Thor meets up with her. So maybe She-Hulk needs to be a little later in the timeline. Also, when you throw in that Mallory in an earlier episode said she's been married 11 years this October, you don't normally say this October unless you're pretty close to October. So based on the fact that we need to make sure that Jane has gone to New Asgard and been Lady Thor long enough the public would be aware of her, and that this October makes sense, I think I'm going to move She-Hulk more to August. I just don't know there's anything in the episode itself that pinpoint it between where it is between April and September, but these later references seem to imply it's closer to Thor than farther away. So we'll see. We'll see if it tightens up anymore, but I do believe this would be where Disney Plus has it placed. And as I mentioned earlier, I am going to do a video where we throw out the Disney Plus timeline for the moment and just say, all right, how would we place things if we didn't have Disney Plus's guidance? But using the Disney Plus timeline, this is where I think everything falls. All right, so bottom line, I think the future looks bright for She-Hulk in the MCU. I can't wait for her next appearance. I'd love for her to join the Avengers, maybe the West Coast Avengers, just to interact with more, obviously interacting with Deadpool. Can you imagine them competing on who can break the fourth wall the best? Oh my goodness, so much potential. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the series. I certainly did. Some episodes better than others, yes, but overall, I enjoyed the series. Like this video if you don't mind. You can subscribe if you haven't already. Check out more video content out there. And in the meantime, let's all continue to enjoy the ever-expanding, ever-growing Marvel Cinematic Universe.